The house is quiet now. The morning sun slides gently across the kitchen counter, lighting up a half-empty cup of coffee. The chair across the table stays still, untouched, yet filled with memories. For many older Americans, this moment of silence can feel heavy, almost too real. But for others, it's the start of peace. Because here's the truth, it's not loneliness most seniors fear. It's the fading of noise, the quiet that makes time feel too long and life feel too small. But what if that quiet could become your greatest strength? In 2025, over 30% of Americans over 65 live alone. Yet, research shows an inspiring twist. A growing number of them report feeling more alive, more peaceful, and more in control than ever before. They're not waiting for company. They're building lives filled with meaning, purpose, and joy, right inside their own walls. What are they doing differently? What turns solitude into serenity? Today, we uncover 7 powerful, life-tested secrets that have helped seniors across America transform their quiet days into deeply fulfilling ones. And before we dive in, if you live alone, or love someone who does, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to Elderly Dose. What you're about to hear may completely change how you see solitude, not as something to escape, but as something to embrace. Meet Mildred Kane, age 79, a retired librarian from the heart of Santa Fe, New Mexico. The kind of woman whose presence feels like a quiet poem. She has short silver curls, soft brown eyes behind elegant glasses, and she never goes a day without wearing her favorite turquoise scarf, a faded but cherished gift from her late husband, Arthur. For 40 years, her world revolved around stories, the smell of old books, the laughter of students, and the comforting hum of conversation in the library. But when Arthur passed, the world seemed to turn down its volume. Her mornings were marked by silence, her evenings by the soft ticking of a clock that echoed through the empty house. For months, she sat by the same window, watching life move outside while hers seemed to slow inside. Until one quiet morning, as sunlight spilled across her turquoise scarf, she whispered a question that would change everything. What if I stop waiting for company and start becoming my own best one? That question didn't just fill the silence, it rewrote her story. Mildred didn't chase youth or nostalgia. Instead, she built a new rhythm of life, one rooted in peace, purpose, and self-connection. Her 7 secrets to living alone without feeling lonely became her daily guide, not to survive solitude, but to celebrate it. And as you'll see, each secret holds a key, not to escaping loneliness, but transforming it into independence, confidence, and quiet joy. Secret number 1. Rebuild your mornings. When Mildred Kane first began living alone, mornings felt endless, quiet, gray, and heavy. The same cup of cold coffee, the same creaking chair, the same headlines reminding her of a world that seemed to have moved on without her. But one morning, she made a decision that changed everything. She decided that if she couldn't fill her house with people, she would fill it with presence. She called it her sunrise ritual. It began simply, brewing a cup of cinnamon coffee that filled her small kitchen with warmth. As it brewed, she'd open her curtains and let the desert sunlight pour in, painting her walls gold. Then, before checking her phone or the news, she'd sit with her journal and write 3 things she looked forward to that day, no matter how small. Sometimes it was watering the garden. Sometimes, calling my niece. Sometimes, just listening to music from the 60s while I fold laundry. This daily act, she said, made her feel alive before the day even began. And she wasn't just imagining it. In 2025, doctors and behavioral researchers agree. Exposure to early sunlight increases serotonin and helps regulate the body's circadian rhythm, both crucial for seniors who struggle with motivation, sleep, or emotional flatness. Morning rituals don't just start your day. They reset your sense of belonging in the world. Mildred described it this way. When I let the light in, it reminded me that the world hadn't forgotten me. It was just waiting for me to open the curtains. Her sunrise ritual became her anchor. It gave her day's structure, but more importantly, it gave her mornings meaning. A feeling that something beautiful could still begin, even at 79. How you greet your morning decides how your day greets you. What's one thing that makes your morning feel like yours again? Whether it's the sound of your favorite record, a slow stretch with your tea, or just sitting by the window watching the light change, your morning is your foundation. And rebuilding it isn't about routine, it's about reclaiming your rhythm. Secret number 2, redefine companionship. For months, Mildred Kane thought companionship had to come from conversation, from visits, laughter, or shared meals. But one afternoon at the local animal shelter, that belief quietly changed. She met a small gray cat with uneven fur and wide green eyes who had been left behind when his elderly owner passed. He was timid, quiet, and overlooked, just like she'd been feeling. His name was Oliver. Mildred didn't plan to adopt that day, but when she reached out and Oliver leaned his head gently into her hand, something inside her shifted. It wasn't pity, she later said. It was recognition. 2 souls who needed purpose again. Bringing Oliver home brought life back into her quiet world. Her mornings now began with soft meows instead of silence. Her afternoons included playtime, grooming, and trips to the vet where she'd meet other pet owners. Little conversations that reminded her she was still part of something living and warm. Even her evenings changed, no longer lonely, but gently accompanied by a small heartbeat curled up on her lap. Researchers in 2025 have been clear about this. Companionship doesn't have to mean human presence. Studies from the National Institute on Aging show that caring for pets significantly lowers blood pressure, reduces anxiety, and boosts daily movement among older adults. But more than the science, it's the symbolism. The act of nurturing another life, no matter how small, reinforces one's sense of purpose. And for those who can't care for animals, companionship can take other forms. Tending to houseplants, feeding birds on the porch, or joining online communities that share stories, recipes, or memories. What matters isn't the who, it's the why. Connection doesn't have to be grand or loud. Sometimes, it's found in the quiet exchange of care. As Mildred often says now, sitting by her window with Oliver in her lap. I used to think I needed company to feel alive. But all I really needed was something, or someone, to care for. You don't always need company. Sometimes, you just need connection. What or who adds warmth to your space, no matter how small? Whether it's a pet, a plant, a neighbor, or a simple hobby that gives back, companionship is not just about filling silence. It's about giving your heart a reason to stay open. Secret number 3. Design a home that hugs you. After years of silence, Mildred Kane began to notice something unexpected. Her house, the same one she'd shared with her husband for nearly 40 years, no longer felt like comfort. It felt like memory, frozen in time, too quiet, too heavy. Every wall echoed a yesterday she couldn't change. So one afternoon, she decided to start over, not by moving, but by transforming. If I'm going to live alone, she said, then my home should make me feel alive. She began with color. Out went the beige that felt tired. In came soft sage green, a shade she'd once admired in an art museum because it reminded her of calm mornings and renewal. Next, she turned her living room into a memory garden. She didn't remove her husband's photographs, but she reframed them alongside her new watercolor paintings. Bright bursts of turquoise and gold that spoke of continuing, not clinging. The photos no longer mourned the past. They celebrated a shared legacy inside a living present. Then came lighting, the kind of gentle glow that seems to breathe warmth into the air. She placed small lamps in corners where shadows once collected, strung soft fairy lights across her bookshelf, and added a candle near her reading chair that smelled faintly of vanilla and cedar. The result wasn't just aesthetic, it was emotional architecture. And here's the powerful truth. Psychologists in 2025 confirm that environmental design directly shapes emotional resilience. A recent AARP study showed that seniors who personalize and refresh their living spaces report 32% higher daily mood satisfaction and stronger feelings of safety. Your home doesn't just hold your body, it holds your state of mind. Mildred began calling her house her living sanctuary. Every time she walked through her door, she felt something she hadn't felt in years, welcomed. The space didn't just protect her, it reflected her. Because when you age, your home shouldn't become smaller with you, it should grow with you. Each pillow, plant, and color choice becomes a whisper that says, you still belong here. So, if you've been living among the same tired curtains or old decor that no longer feels like you, remember this: your home is not a museum. It's a mirror. Update it until it reflects who you've become, not who you used to be. Don't just live in your home, make it live with you. What's one small change that could make your home feel more peaceful? Because peace isn't found in moving away from the past. It's found in designing a present that embraces you every time you walk through the door. Secret number 4, keep a curious mind. By the time Mildred Kane reached her late 70s, she realized something profound. The body may slow down, but the mind only does when curiosity ends. For months after her husband's passing, her days blended together: breakfast, silence, television, sleep. But one morning, while scrolling online, she stumbled upon a virtual community called Late Bloom Learners. It was a group of older adults who gathered every Tuesday to explore new skills: painting, digital photography, even podcasting. Mildred hesitated. Me? Learn tech? She thought with a laugh. But something inside whispered, why not now? Her first class was on digital storytelling for beginners. The screen flickered to life with smiling faces, men and women her age from all over the US, each with their own stories, laughter, and hesitant clicks. By the end of that session, Mildred wasn't just learning about digital tools. She was rediscovering her spark. Every Tuesday became a ritual. She brewed her cinnamon coffee, tied her turquoise scarf, and logged into class like she was entering a new world. She learned how to edit short videos, turn her watercolor journey into an online journal, and even use AI art tools to create dreamlike landscapes. Her once quiet afternoons were now filled with questions, laughter, and small victories like "I finally uploaded it." And science backs her joy. According to 2025 studies from Stanford Center for Longevity, seniors who engage in lifelong learning experience up to 30% lower rates of depression and 40% higher optimism about the future. The act of learning, not the mastery itself, keeps the brain active, sharpens memory, and gives emotional energy a new direction. Learning, for Mildred, became her bridge out of loneliness. It reminded her that curiosity isn't tied to youth, it's tied to aliveness. Every time she clicked Join Meeting, she wasn't just learning new skills, she was learning herself again. And she wasn't alone in this shift. Across the country, seniors are now embracing online learning communities, from YouTube tutorials to Zoom classes to senior-friendly virtual clubs. These spaces don't just teach, they connect. They turn "I live alone" into "I belong somewhere." As Mildred often said, curiosity gave me my future back. So if you've ever told yourself it's too late, remember, it's never about the skill you're learning. It's about the spirit you're keeping alive. Curiosity doesn't fade with age, it deepens with wisdom. What's something new you've always wanted to try, but never did? Because every new skill is more than a hobby. It's proof that you're still growing, still curious, and still beautifully becoming. Secret number 5, schedule your joy. For Mildred Kane, happiness didn't return to her life all at once. It tiptoed back in, one intentional moment at a time. After months of quiet afternoons and long evenings, Mildred realized something. Loneliness doesn't always mean you have no one around. Sometimes, it means you've forgotten to look forward to something. The days blurred together, not because she was sad, but because nothing sparked anticipation. So she decided to change that. She sat down one Sunday morning with her planner, the same one she used to record library schedules years ago, and wrote at the top of each day, something joyful. It wasn't about grand events or bucket list dreams. It was about tiny pleasures that stitched her days together. Monday, water the succulents and talk to them like friends. Tuesday, watch Sinjin in the rain with popcorn. Wednesday, call my granddaughter and let her tell me about school, even the boring parts. Thursday, try a new soup recipe. Friday, sit on the porch and paint the sunset. She called it her joy calendar, and soon, it became her quiet rebellion against loneliness. Neuroscientists in 2025 say scheduling joy has a measurable impact on mood regulation for older adults. Creating moments of intentional pleasure activates dopamine, the brain's reward chemical, which not only lifts energy but helps combat apathy and fatigue, two emotions seniors living alone often face. And here's what's fascinating. It wasn't the activity itself that made Mildred happy, it was the anticipation. Every night, she'd look at her calendar and think, tomorrow, I get to do that. That simple thought gave her mornings meaning again. Some days, of course, she didn't feel like doing anything at all. But she stuck to her rule, no day without joy. Even if all she managed was making a cup of cinnamon coffee and sitting by the window with her cat, Oliver, that was enough. The point wasn't productivity. It was presence. Experts now call this practice intentional joy design. It's about giving your emotional world structure, just as you would your finances or medication routine. Seniors who follow this approach report feeling more fulfilled, less anxious, and more socially connected, even when physically alone. I used to wait for happiness to visit me. Now I invite it, every day, right on schedule. So if your days have started to feel repetitive, maybe it's time to open your calendar and give tomorrow a reason to shine. Joy is rarely spontaneous. It's something you make room for. What's one small thing that could make your tomorrow lighter? Because sometimes, the smallest act of joy, even if it lasts just 5 minutes, is the thread that keeps the rest of the day from unraveling. Secret number 6. Build your safety net. For Mildred Kane, solitude wasn't the enemy, uncertainty was. After all, peace of mind comes not just from quiet mornings or cozy routines, but from knowing that when something goes wrong, you won't face it alone. One chilly evening last winter, a power outage swept through her neighborhood in Santa Fe. The lights went out, the house grew cold, and for the first time in years, Mildred felt a pang of vulnerability. She realized that while she was comfortable being alone, she wasn't entirely prepared to be. So, the next day, she took out her floral notebook, the one where she kept her favorite poems, and wrote a new title at the top of the page, My Circle of Three. Mildred didn't want a long contact list full of people she'd never call. She wanted 3 real lifelines. People who knew her well enough to show up if she didn't answer the phone, who wouldn't think twice before checking in. Her circle became a quiet fortress of care. Nancy, her next-door neighbor, a retired teacher who walked her dog past Mildred's porch every morning. Lila, her niece who lived 2 states away but had access to Mildred's medical records and bank alerts. And Frank, a retired firefighter from her church, who had once told her, "You don't stop protecting people just because you retire." They each had a small role. Nancy had a spare key, Lila managed her emergency contact list, and Frank helped check her smoke detectors and made sure her phone battery backup was working. They didn't hover or pity her. They simply had her back. That made all the difference. Sociologists in 2025 refer to this as social preparedness, an emerging model of aging that prioritizes both independence and interconnectedness. Seniors who build intentional safety networks report feeling 40% more confident living alone, and significantly less anxiety about emergencies or unexpected challenges. What's most powerful about this idea is that it restores agency. Instead of waiting for help, you design it. Instead of feeling dependent, you create mutual reliability. Mildred didn't just protect herself. She inspired others in her community to build their own circles of 3. Soon, the seniors at her church started swapping emergency plans, sharing health check-apps, and forming buddy systems that turn strangers into safeguards. It's not about expecting danger. It's about choosing security over fear. Mildred once said during her online seniors forum, "I don't fear living alone anymore, because even though I sleep by myself, I never feel unguarded." That's the true power of preparedness. It turns solitude into strength. Independence isn't doing everything yourself. It's knowing who to call when you can't. Who's in your circle of 3? Because even the strongest walls need a few trusted doors, ones that open when you knock. Secret number 7. Turn silence into strength. For most of her life, Mildred Kane feared silence. After her husband passed, the quiet in her Santa Fe home felt like an uninvited guest, sitting heavy in the air, following her from room to room. The ticking of the clock once sounded comforting. Now, It was a reminder of time passing too slowly. But something shifted the night she decided to stop fighting the quiet and start listening to it. She began treating silence not as a void, but as a conversation. Every night before bed, she'd make herself a cup of chamomile tea, sit by her window where the desert stars glowed, and open her worn leather journal, the same one she'd used as a librarian decades ago. There, she began writing letters to her younger self. Dear 40-year-old me, you worried so much about what comes after, but look at us now. We found peace, not in company, but in courage. Another night, she wrote to her late husband, not with sadness but gratitude. Thank you for the love that still keeps my heart warm when the house feels cold. These letters weren't about grief anymore. They were about grace. Through silence, Mildred found what she'd been missing all along, her own voice. Psychologists today call this practice reflective solitude, a mindful way for older adults to process memories, reduce anxiety, and strengthen emotional resilience. It's not about being isolated. It's about reconnecting with your spirit, your story, and your stillness. And here's something fascinating. According to a 2025 wellness study by the National Institute on Aging, seniors who intentionally spend 10 to 15 minutes daily in quiet reflection, whether journaling, meditating, or praying, report a 45% higher sense of emotional balance and greater overall life satisfaction than those who avoid solitude. The secret, experts say, isn't silence itself. It's what you fill it with. For Mildred, it became a ritual of emotional renewal. The quiet hours between dusk and dawn stopped being lonely and started feeling sacred. She even began a small online group for older adults called Night Notes, where seniors from across the US shared their evening reflections. Some wrote poems. Others just listed what they were thankful for. But every one of them discovered the same truth. When you stop fearing silence, it starts healing you. Mildred once said in a video call, smiling softly beneath her turquoise scarf, silence used to sound like loss. Now, it sounds like peace. It's easy to mistake stillness for emptiness, but for those who learn to embrace it, silence becomes a sanctuary. Silence isn't emptiness, it's space for your soul to speak. When was the last time you felt peace in your own company? Because sometimes, the quietest moments hold the loudest truths. The ones that remind us that even alone, we are never truly abandoned by life. Mildred Kane doesn't see her quiet evenings as empty anymore. She sees them as earned peace. When she locks her front door each night, the click isn't the sound of isolation, it's the sound of arrival. The soft hum of her old radio, the faint rustle of her cat Oliver finding his corner, and the golden glow from her reading lamp now feel like the rhythm of a life well lived. She brews her last cup of cinnamon tea, flips open her journal, and writes just 5 words that have become her mantra. Today, I kept myself company. And there's power in that. She says gently, her silver curls catching the warm light. I thought I was learning to live alone. But really, I was learning to live fully. That's the quiet victory so many overlook. The moment when solitude becomes not a sentence, but a sanctuary. Today, Mildred's story mirrors thousands across America. Older adults who are rewriting what it means to age alone. They're proof that living solo doesn't have to mean living silently. It can mean reclaiming your rhythm, rediscovering your joy, and rewriting your story on your own terms. In a world that rushes to fill every quiet space, Mildred reminds us of something profound. Living alone doesn't mean lonely. It means choosing yourself every single day. So, to everyone watching, if you've ever felt the weight of quiet moments, remember, peace isn't found in noise or company. It's found when you learn to belong to yourself. If Mildred's story inspired you, hit that like button, share this with someone who lives alone, and subscribe to Elderly Dose, where wisdom meets courage and solitude becomes strength. Because sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is love your own company.